Oh, we're here again. And why are we here again? That is a great fucking question, considering I said I was not gonna do this thing where I get woken up in the middle of the night with intuitive messages and get up and talk about them. And yet, here I am in the middle of the night, having been woken up and not being able to go back to sleep until I get this out. So what I'm gathering is that people too often are looking for evidence of God in other people's lives and in the world outside of them, and not enough within their own lives. I'm gonna grab my blanket and get cozy. Who knows how long we'll be here? Could be 3 minutes, could be an hour. Only one way to find out. As someone who experiences an immense amount of synchronicity and woo-woo-ness in their lives, my life, I find it difficult to have a conversation about that when conversations around God so often revolve around, well, why do children get cancer? Why am I seeing this violence and this catastrophe in the world if God exists? Why would God allow for these things? And now everyone has their different version of God, right? Okay, I don't necessarily, what I'm talking about, I don't associate with like a man in the sky. So don't get me twisted with that. However, if that is your version of God, that's fine. It could be anything. Whatever it is for you that makes sense, that's what I'm talking about. This applies across the board. The thing is that we could have a conversation about why things like that happen. However, that is a very difficult conversation to have on a video on the internet, to just throw out to the void for all of the different voices to have their way with. And I'm not ready for that, and I don't think you're ready for that. So we're not gonna do that. The conversation that I do feel like I'm publicly ready to have is that around what God looks like in your own life. In your own life. Because while I have my theories, I can't tell you why little Timmy down the road has cancer. I can't tell you why that horrific thing happened to that person. I can't tell you why this country is being torn apart by war, other than the fact that humans have free will. Like I said, I could go a lot deeper spiritually on that, but that's a conversation for a different day. What I can tell you is how God works in my life. I'm not living little Timmy's life. I'm not living that person's life. I'm not living in that country. I am living as Ariana in the year 2026 in Vancouver, Washington, United States. And granted, that comes with a lot of privilege that is not to be overlooked. I have also faced my fair share of hardship within that timeline, within that life, that I can see evidence of God woven into in ways that I cannot ignore or pretend don't exist, or are me just making meaning of things at this point. Like, that may have been true in the past, but at this point it's like, I've seen too much, I've come too far. I can't unknow what I know at this point. And I say the word know very loosely because What we know is very little. However, I feel like at this point I know there's something going on. There's something going on. And so, what I'm feeling called to share is to bring the lens back into your life when looking for evidence of God, of spirit, of beyond the veil, whatever it is that you're looking for. Look at your life and like really look at it. Look at your being and your internal world in relation to your external world. Because I believe that that is where you're going to find it, not in other people's lives that you have really no idea about, like, what that experience is for them. And what kind of sucks, it's like beautiful and it sucks, is that there are certain things that don't totally make sense until you hit a certain point in your life, I think. Because, like, for example, for a long time, I really struggled with looking at why certain things happened to me in regard to, like, my childhood. I feel like once I was an adult and had control over my own life, it was easier for me to see, like, the connections between what I asked for and what I was getting, and also kind of just like the consequences of my own actions, or like it was easier for me to see the way that God was working in my life once my life was like in my hands and not in like a caretaker's hands. However, I am coming to a point in my life where I am starting to see how everything that has ever happened to me in my entire life is now valuable in my now moment. However, that requires getting to a certain point to be able to have that sort of revelation. And so I want to say this message, but I also feel like it comes with like, I don't know, this caveat, this like warning label of like some objects are closer than they appear, you know, like some stuff just isn't going to make sense yet. And you have to kind of make room for that, I think. You definitely have to just make room for some things to not make sense yet, or for some things to be unknowable, and just remember that we are a human being and like how small we actually are, and that like the limitations that we have, okay? Like I am also a believer that we are so powerful and can initiate great change and wonderful, beautiful, powerful magic in this world, but we are also like very small, and a lot of times are processing a lot of things through our human mind rather than like our being, our heart, our body, these other things that we have access to that we are. And this thing really has its limitations around like what it can understand, especially from like a cultural conditioning standpoint. And so, with that warning label of like, we don't need to be able to understand every single little thing in order to see the way that God, the universe, life is working in our life. That can come with time, and some things just are unknowable, I think. However, I think that if you pay attention, and this doesn't require us to go back and relive every little thing, every horrible thing, every beautiful thing, everything that has ever happened to us or that we've experienced or that we've gone through, whatever. What we can do, you can do that if you want to. And I think that there are times when it is necessary to like revisit the past. But we don't need to open up every box of trauma or whatever and dig through it and relive all this shit to do this, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated either. What it does require is a certain level of presence in your life and in your body. We have to be here now to see evidence of God now, because God exists in the here and now, in your present moment, in every moment that you're in. And this is the one that we have right now, is the present one. It's all we have, really. And so a beautiful way that I like to do that, and how my first major spiritual awakening started, is with a conversation with that entity when I was losing hope. And I essentially, oh my God. I'm sorry. I'm literally having realizations as I'm speaking. I'm sorry. That was actually a big one that just happened. What? Oh, that was a full circle moment in my mind, and no one's gonna understand it but me. I want to like explain it, but essentially, I hit a moment where I just felt like there was nothing, and life is just chaos, and things are just happening to us, and yada yada. And I had a real sit down, come to Jesus meeting with my higher power that I was very much feeling the lack of. And literally asked for a glowing neon sign. I needed something. What's funny is that I am now building a business that has been so divinely led that my logo is literally a big neon sign. And with that just comes so many moments in between. So, my point is to reel it back in to where I thought I was going with that, is that I like to go to my higher power. And I think from recent conversations with people, I think you guys are praying wrong. Not that there's a right or wrong way to do it, but I kind of think you're praying wrong. I think that it's like so often people go to God and they pray for what they think they need instead of letting God decide what that is. Instead of just going with your shit and actually unloading that in a conversation with whatever that entity is for you, and letting God fill in the blanks, right? It's like so often people go into prayer and they're like praying for patience, they're praying for strength, they're praying for like a specific thing that they think that they need. And that's tricky because like people say, if you pray for patience, like don't ever pray for patience, because then God will just give you a bunch of things to be patient about. And so instead, I find it to be more beneficial to me to just, instead of acting like I know what the fuck I need, talking to God like it is a conversation with a loved one. God, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm struggling with. I don't know what to do. This is how I feel. This is why I don't trust you. This is why I feel this way. Like, really, like, God can handle it, okay? So, like, really unload the burdens on your soul. That's what God is here for, and what it wants from you is to just actually be, like, so incredibly, like, vulnerable and honest, and have that conversation out loud. Go sit somewhere where you can do that and have that conversation out loud I have found that usually in the process of doing that, usually something will come up as I'm speaking. Like it will start to kind of like, I will start to hear the receive the message, whatever. I feel like saying hear is weird, but I will start to get something that wants to come online for me. However, that comes with practice, I think. Maybe not, I don't know. I feel that you generally, like, if you really like let yourself unload, maybe let yourself cry, let yourself have whatever emotion that you need to have in that process, that just doing that will create a sort of sense of relief. And then, because you're not always just going to get the answer right there. Sometimes you do. Sometimes I do. Sometimes as I'm speaking, it's like clicking in my brain. I'm like, oh shit, there it is. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you need to have this conversation and then you need to go about your life. You will feel unburdened to some degree, I think, in a way that will allow you to move forward if you really take the time to have this moment over and over and over again every time you need to have this moment. And then you go about your life. And then I need you to stay present in that life and start paying attention. Start looking, seeing, listening, hearing what people are saying. Pay attention to what comes into your awareness after you have these conversations. Slow down enough to be aware of your surroundings in the present moment, because that is where God lives. God doesn't live in your mind in the past. It doesn't live in your future projections that aren't even real, may never be real. It is in your present now moment in your life. And so after you have that conversation, what I have found is that things start to happen. People come in and they say something. You'll see something on the TV while you're out and about. You'll hear something in a song, whatever. If you start paying attention, you will see the way that God is talking to you in every moment of your life. And it becomes a practice, okay? It might start off slow. Let it build. It might come in really loud like it did for me. I don't know. But I think it will meet you where you are. But yeah, I think if you pay attention, you will start to see that like your life is talking to you, and that you will start to receive information that answers your question or that helps you with whatever it is that you're trying to do, with whatever it is you're trying to understand. And this can become an ongoing conversation with life, with the creative force that is life, that is infused, that literally just is everything in existence. That's where people, like, I think they make God too small. I think they make God too small. And they forget that it is literally in everything. It's in everything. It's like we're waiting for this man in the sky to come down and bestow upon us the message. Instead of realizing that your child is the message, your brother is the message, that person on the bus is the message, that thing that's showing up on the TV is the message, that song that's coming on the radio is the message, the obstacle that you are now faced with is the message. It's all the message, right? Everything coming into your awareness, that animal, the bird, the fucking whatever, the water, the trees, it's all there. But you have to be in it, with it, to really see it. Because I think so often, and I catch myself doing this all the time, and this is normal, so often Like our minds are living in the past or in the future. We're reliving some old shit, or we're preparing for the new shit, or we're projecting the old shit on the new shit. Whatever. We're back there or we're up there and not here. Like when we're here, that's where the magic is. And if you're walking this path of wanting to understand this, it gets to a point where I believe it's like it's hard to ignore. It's hard to not see. It's hard to not see. But you're not going to catch it if you're swirling around up here. And so with that comes, some other stuff. Sometimes we need to go to therapy. We need some nervous system work. We need to implement some things into our life. It's a journey. But I think that God can meet you in your where you're at also, and so the point of this message is to just look within your own life. If you're struggling to see God out there, it's because that's like, yes, God is out there, but you're not, right? Like, you're not living that person's life. That doesn't mean we shouldn't care. That doesn't mean that things don't mean things, that it doesn't matter, that it's not horrific. I'm not saying any of that. Like I said, that is a whole other conversation that is for a different time. What I am simply talking about is look for God in your life. And then I believe that if you can do that, if you can find that, then God will use you to create magic in the world. And if everybody was doing that, then there's a lot of things that happen out there that wouldn't be happening, right? So bring that energy back here to you, because that's where God needs you, is in your body and in your life, so that it can use you in a way that you want to be used. I mean, that's a weird word, use, but it's like, I have found that like what I want, what is best for me, what feels good to me, where my dreams and God's dreams are like this. Two peas in a pod, okay? So it's not like this thing where God's going to use you to do shit that you don't want to do. It's like, this is shit you want to do. And if you let it, if you're in your life, in your body, in your identity as who you are, that's where that can happen. And then that has ripple effects in the world. So yeah, stop trying to make sense of everything that's happening in the world, and just maybe try and make a little bit more sense of what's going on with you and your life, and why you are the way you are, and what you need to do moving forward. Keep the focus on your life and what's coming into your awareness. And again, people are going to take this all sorts of ways, I know, and that's why it's so hard to have this conversation, because does it mean that we just ignore the suffering of the world? No. But like I said, I think when you can bring the energy back into you, now you can function, right? Now you can work in the world. That's kind of my point, is that if we are just allowing our energy to just leak out all over the place, and we're so busy worrying about what that person's doing and what's going on over there and blah, 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 then it's like we don't have our energy. Our energy is not within us and in our life where we actually can work, right? That's where our power is, to even inflict any sort of change on anything else. So, look for God in your life, in your now moment, because that's where all of your power is. It's where all of the magic is. We can't make sense of God by looking at things that are happening in other people's lives that we don't actually know about, or what that person asked for. I can look at things that are happening in my life and see the way that it is bringing about change that I asked for, a becoming that I asked to be. I can do that. I can see the way that things that seem hard or bad or whatever, I can see the way that that is working within me and in my system, and I can make that, because I spend a lot of time in self-reflection, I can see the way that things, obviously I can't see all the ways, but it's like I can see many ways that the things that happen to me are creating change that I asked for, whether it's within me or in my life or whatever. I can make that connection. I can't make that connection for other people because I don't know what their internal world actually looks like. I don't know what conversations they are having with God. I don't know what they asked for. I don't know what they've done. I don't know because I'm not in their life. I'm not living in that body, in that life. So, while I think that we should be aware of what's happening in the world, it's not like we just turn it off and ignore it. We are a collective. We should care about each other. But with that, look for evidence of God in your life and in your conversations and in your relationship with that thing. That is all. This video is long as usual, but I feel like that is, from my heart to your heart, that is the message. Thank you, and now, good morning.